shirt, I think.
Yeah, let's do it. It's gonna be stuck in here.
How are you?
I just think that you guys are gonna miss me. And it's behind you right now. It's gonna wrap that over.
He didn't say anything. I understand he wants us to take the reins of this application.
I sent a note to Chief about when you guys all turn it over to you.
Okay.
I'm gonna turn it over to you.
What did you come?
Here we are. Right here we talk about challenges and how this is the bigger picture. And talking about my neighborhoods and what your challenges are out in the neighborhoods. And then when I start talking about and I didn't put it on here, but when I start talking about the tools, to talk a little bit about the health and safety code, because no one really knows what that is.
He is our guru on that.
Does he know he's going to
I'll give him the
option. Tell him we get into
I don't, whoever wants to do it.
I'm saying so they need somebody to run around like I'll go write my damn citation right now, he's in court. So I gotta get them two on board.
I was just
If I'm
going
gonna
to
file.
show this to the
If not, it doesn't
city
give me
attorney.
no good to do.
But I'll wait.
So
I know we put you on the spot this morning. Do you want to take the stand or are you available for questions? What's your comfort level?
well, I mean, you need to
Remember, this is a high-level briefing. We don't want to get stuck in minutia, but we want to just make sure that they understand what we're doing, what the program is.
All right.
right, I wanna explain.
I'm going to now call this meeting of the Sweetwater City Council to order.
Yes, yes.
I'm going to ask Assistant Chief Corey Stroman to give the invocation this morning and Councilman Castro to lead us in the pledge.
Your ballot. Heavenly Father, we come to you in prayer this morning, and we first of all, we praise you and we thank you for your creation, for all the blessings that you bestow upon us and bestow upon this community. And Lord, we come to you and we just ask that you would be with all of us in this meeting today. We lift up our council members as they hear and make decisions. We just pray that their decisions are in line with your will and that you would just make your will known for our community. And Lord, we also just lift up our community and pray for rain, that you would bestow that blessing abundantly upon us. And Lord, we understand all things will happen in your time. We make our request and petition known to you, that you would bless our land, bless the farmers that are relying on it, the livestock, and just all of us that need rain to, honestly, Lord, just to lift our spirits as well. So we pray for that blessing. Again, pray a blessing over our meeting today and a blessing over our community. It's these things pray in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor to the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
All right. Item number 4 calls for public input. At this time, anyone is allowed to speak on any matter other than personal matters or matters under litigation for a length not to exceed 3 minutes. No council discussion or action may take place on the matter until such matter has been placed on an agenda and posted. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Okay. We'll now move to item 5A, to make a motion to take from the table an ordinance on the recommended rezoning request to rezone from B dwelling district to R residential with livestock to H house district, business district for the south side block, lot 1 through 12, known as 2301 Lantham Street, south side block 5, lot 23, known as 2203 Sayre Street, south side block 5, lot 13 through 19, known as 2311 Sayre Street, south side block 12, lot 1 through 12, known as 1206 Bradford Street, south side block 12, lot 2324, known as 2200 Ross Avenue, and south side block 12, lot 13 through 21, known as 2300 Ross Avenue.
So moved. Go ahead. I'll second.
All in favor to move it from the table?
Aye.
Okay, we now move to item 6, which is act upon an ordinance in the recommended Rita's zoning request to rezone from B dwelling district and R residential with livestock to H business district for the south side block, lot 1 through 12, known as 2301 Lantham Street, south side block 12, lot 23, known as 2203 Sayre Street, south side block 5, lot 13 through 19, known as 2311 Sayre Street, south side block 12, lot 1 through 12, known as 1206 Bradford Street, south side block 12, lot 2324, known as 2200 Ross Avenue, and south side block 12, lot 13 through 21, known as 2300 Ross Avenue. Do we have a motion?
I make the motion, we deny the request.
Deny the request. Okay?
Second.
Okay, I guess the best way for us to do this is just go down through the line. For or against?
Against.
Okay, against. Dr. Peak?
4 to 9.
And nay here. So motion is denied. Y'all are welcome to stay if you want to. We're fixing to move on to the next item. Thank you.
What are they trying to do?
No, they're trying to do some
Thank you.
commercial RV that have been used.
They could do it for RV.
Okay, we'll now move to item 7, which is here a presentation from Melissa Bosmer regarding implementation of Ignite Sweetwater staff report on code enforcement and future activities.
Good morning, Mayor and Council.
Good morning.
Get that out, right? Thank you for allowing us to put this on the agenda this morning. Staff has been working on it. We didn't have it ready for your meeting last week. We didn't know we were going to have this opportunity. So I do apologize. You just actually got the report this morning. But staff is here, and we want to share with you what we're calling neighborhood refresh. And this all started with some of the concerns that have been expressed, particularly and more vocally by Councilman Castro, but certainly several council members have issues in their precincts that are havens for violations of city codes, whether it be junk vehicles, junk on the lots, it could be overgrown weeds. There are a number of things that we find in our community. This was reflected, not so much that particular example in the precinct, but the whole issue of how the community looks was reflected in Ignite Sweetwater. I've mentioned this before, and I'll mention it again, that out of a possible 10, residents in Sweetwater said that we look to the outside world as a 2.9, which means that we have work to do. And that is part of what the Neighborhood Refresh Program is. It is not to say that we haven't been out there enforcing the code, because we have. Currently, we have 2.5 employees, and I say 0.5 because we have a combination building inspector, code enforcement officer, but we have 2 full-time code enforcement officers, and they're out there doing their job all the time. The number of letters we've written in the last few months has grown substantially over what we were able to do previously. But let's talk a little bit about the Neighborhood Refresh Program, because it is, and the manager said something very interesting about this yesterday. I was talking about it as a program, and he said, it's not only a program, it's a promise. It's a promise to you, and it's a promise to the residents that we will produce cleaner neighborhoods as a result of this program. But it's going to take the coordination and the effort of all of the employees that are sitting in this room, and it will take your support as we go forward. So when we look at our communities, we know what we have. We have junk vehicles, we have unsightly stored stuff. I think one of the council members refers to it as junked up lots, which is very appropriate. We have junk vehicles, we have appliances and furniture in the front yard, we've got old campers in front yards, and we have violations going on in a number of areas. One of the other things that we also have is a relationship, and I'm going to ask Assistant Chief Stroman to talk a little bit about this with you, is that there's a relationship from a police enforcement point of view to what we find in our neighborhoods. In fact, one of the things that Chief Sheridan said is the big circle. It's all related. So if we just take a minute and talk a little bit about the police issues that we find in our neighborhoods.
Over the next 4 hours, I plan to highlight to you. Y'all can start the 3-minute timer. We actually had a very productive meeting yesterday with Ms. Vossmer and a local citizen, and we were discussing some of the issues that this correlates to in our community, and we recognize how they correlate to us on the police side. A lot of people like to kind of make the comment of, well, that's code and that's police, and it's just not. It's not separated like that. First of all, there's numerous violations that coincide with, here in a minute, Detective Heine is going to talk about the health and safety code, because there's so many ordinances that correlate with that, and it's enforceable on the police side. Let me first be clear, we are not of the mindset that every residence that has ordinance violations has greater drug activity. But what we have seen is residents where there is significant criminal activity, and I would say drug activity, there is typically a correlation between numerous code violations. Some could argue that it goes back to the broken window theory of you address the small things and the big things don't become a problem. But we had an incident over the weekend where we had a pretty sizable seizure of narcotics in the city limits, and looking at the house, it perfectly encompasses a lot of what we're discussing here as far as specialty vehicles that are parked on grass, junk vehicles that are parked on the lot, numerous health and safety code violations that correlate to habitats that create breeding grounds for rodents and other issues like that. So this is a perfect example, and we've gotten to employ it some already on the teamwork aspect of to address these problems. We can't have code looking at code, police looking at what we'd consider police issues. Y'all as a governing body have tasked us with a mission statement of providing a vibrant and secure community, and one of the cornerstones to that is teamwork. And so this plan that Ms. Vossmer has kind of spearheaded and we've all participated in is a perfect example of how we can accomplish that as a united front. And so there is definitely a correlation between the things that she's bringing to you and the areas that we serve in. So thank you for your work.
So let's talk a little bit about the program. One of the things we did initially was define what this program is, and let me just read that to you so I get it into the record. Our goal is by using a methodical, coordinated, multi-departmental approach, target individual neighborhoods throughout the community with a focused code enforcement suite for maximum impact and improvements, resulting in cleaner, more livable neighborhoods and a better quality of life for our residents. And so we're going to do this in a manner that makes sense for the community. You've heard the old adage is, how do you eat an elephant? Well, you do it one bite at a time. Code enforcement is very similar to that. You have to take baby steps and continuously walk in order to make improvements in our neighborhoods. The targeted sweeps will start in May. Now, I want to also make sure that I mention that while we'll be doing targeted sweeps, which will involve representatives from the departments that we have here this morning, we also, on the days we're not doing the sweeps, we'll be doing other code enforcement activities throughout the community. It's not an all or nothing, it's both. And I think that that's important to know. So the assistant chief talked a little bit about who was involved. Your new director of planning and operations will be the cheerleader and coordinator of this program beginning May 1st. It involves the police department, and we don't want to leave off animal control, code enforcement department, our communications department, and our solid waste department. All of these employees have a role to play. From our perspective, this kind of a program where it's a focused, targeted sweep maximizes our employees' time. One of the issues that we find, and I'll just use this as an example, is that we have a problem with junk vehicles. State law is very clear on how we can address that. And it takes time. But the first thing you have to prove before you can even do anything is you have to be able to prove in a court that for 30 days that vehicle did not move. So what does that mean? Well, code enforcement works Monday through Friday. So what do we do on the weekends? Well, this is where we start working with the police department and say to patrol, we have this issue here. Can you go by and document that for us? We've not really done that effectively, and I think that with the Chief Sheridan and Assistant Chief Stroman, and then also we're going to hear from Detective Heine, that you'll find that we will do a better job of that. Excuse me. In order to target the neighborhoods, we'll be working with council members to identify those specific neighborhoods where we want to get started. Obviously, we're not going to be able to do a whole lot at very first, so we want to target a few neighborhoods through the city, use them as our guinea pig, if you will, and figure out what's working with what we defined as our program, what needs to change a little bit, and move on from that. We will be working with Patrol, who will be implementing this program on a 24/7. So if they go by and find people parking in the front yard, and the ordinance has gone into effect that says you can't park your vehicles in the front yard, and we're talking about the personal vehicles where we said we'd implement that immediately, then Patrol now can stop and get out of the car and knock on the door and just talk to them about it. And I think that that's really important. Part of this program requires that neighbors get rid of junk, whether it's in their house or whether it's in their yard. That's where Kelly and his group come in, is that we'll be working to set dumpsters in neighborhoods, be working on bulk pickups as needed. We'll also be working to clean up the alleys so that we offer our residents an opportunity to get rid of this material, assuming they want to get rid of it. And we'll deal with them somewhat separately. We will, I just want to mention, we'll continue to talk about our calls. So from our perspective, we think our impact is going to be very visible in the community. Kathleen will do a really great job of bringing a lot of attention to this issue through social media, our website, the community newsletter, talking about how we're going out in communities, we're getting out of our vehicles, we're knocking on doors, we're going house to house. And we're not going to do this during the day. We're going to start at 4 or 5 in the afternoon, and we're going to do it when people are coming home from work or are home from work, so that we actually maximize our opportunity to talk with our residents. The assistant chief and I have had this discussion. We have a little different philosophy on this. I want compliance, and I want it now. And I think from council members, particularly some of the habitual violators, we do want to see those properties cleaned up. On the other hand, I know we need to work and we need to help people that need help who are interested in cleaning up their properties. I think they'll find a perfect balance of that as the program goes forward. One of the results of this program, however, is what will probably end up being potentially a lot of additional cases going to municipal court. Now, from a code enforcement point of view, we have a process where we write letters, and we have to do letters by state law. We also have a tool that we've not used very much in the past, which we will start using, which basically says that our code enforcement officer can file an affidavit with municipal court. The city attorney will look at it, and if everything's appropriate, then we'll issue a summons for that person to come to court. That's not to be used in every instance, but it is an effective tool. The other thing we're going to be enforcing, other than animal control and code enforcement, our nuisance codes, is the health and safety code, which is kind of a new twist. And I'm going to ask Detective Heine to talk about that a little bit, because that's a little bit different from our normal nuisances that we talk about.
Morning. I think it's going to take all of us to clean up the neighborhoods. Code enforcement, I've worked with code for 6 years. The biggest problem we had is you write them a letter, give them 10 days to clean their yard. They do or they don't. Then we have to take them to court, and a lot of time it drags. Under the health and safety code, officers have a bite. I can go up to any house that has anything. Let me read you what litter means. This is for illegal dumping. Decayable waste from a public or private establishment, residence, or restaurant. This includes combustible waste materials, including paper, rags, cartons of wood, etc., furniture, rubber, plastics, yard trimming, leaves, or similar matter. It also includes, this is where it's sort of a catch-all, discarded or worn-out manufactured materials, machinery, including motor vehicles parts, or anything like that. So I can go out, if you have 2 or 3 junk cars in your car, I can go write you a citation on the spot. Now, the only problem with the Health Safety Code is I can't abate those vehicles. That has come through code, through our city ordinance, unfortunately. But if I go out every day, I can write that ticket every day. I don't have to wait, give you 10 days until you go to court. It's pretty swift. Especially, I think that's done for pretty much habitual violators. I think that's our intent is, you've been warned in the past of your junk vehicles or your junk and debris, then we can really, it has some bite. Now, I think our county attorney and our district attorney is going to have to get involved in some of these matters. I think we've talked, I think Melissa's talked to Jeff on some of those issues. Also, in the Chapter 341 of the Health Code, it's a nuisance. I know how many people call in on a pool that has mosquitoes, stuff like that. I think our city ordinance hits on that, but under the Health and Safety Code, we can go in and write citation on the spot for one, especially if we've been warned in the past. Bed bugs, hotels, I didn't realize that was under Health and Safety Code. I know that come up in the past. I don't know. We also, a person that's not here, I don't know who our new health person who's our new health inspector? Correct. The health department. No, what I'm saying is, under the health, they have a lot of bite under this code also for the.
Oh, for the health department, Danny?
Yes, the health department got it.
Is that, is Mitch running the health department? Mitch Moore?
I don't know. It may be Mitch. I don't know. I haven't been down there a long time,
Okay.
but he has a lot of power to enforce those, and he can really exercise the abatement of stuff like that. He has a lot of power to do stuff like that. That idea came to mind when I was in code. I knew that health safety. I don't think we've ever, as a police department, wrote that kind of citation for abandoned vehicles, junk and debris. Let me read you a definition, if I can find it. I brought some of these because I couldn't remember all of them. In your legal dump, waste products, offal, polluting materials, spent chemicals, liquors, brimes, garbage, rubbish, refuge, used tires, or other waste that may not be stored, deposited, or disposed in a manner that may cause the pollution of the surrounding land, or contamination of groundwater or surface water, or this is where it is, the breeding of insects or rodents. How much, 2 or 3 board laying in the front yard, will that make insects come in and breed roaches and everything? It will. So that particular refuge thing has a lot of bite. Anybody that throws anything in the front yard, it could be a plastic, anything that an insect or a rat can hide under, we can cite them for it if we really want to be technical. So the Health and Safety Code has a lot of bite if we get out there and do it. I think the best approach is, like Melissa said, walking door to door. In our problem areas, walking door to door, code enforcement, that's officers walking, and give them even a warning, tell them, hey, you need to clean this up, and also ways to get it cleaned up. Also, give them some resources when they get it cleaned up. But it's about all I have. But it's going to take all of us working together to get it all done.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
So while your report has a lot more detail in it, one of the things that we believe will be an impact will be, in fact, municipal court. Court in itself can be a little bit scary, but the dockets as they are right now are very full. We believe that this program will generate additional work for our city attorney, your municipal judge, as well as the court staff. One of the recommendations that we have in here is that council consider, and I need to point out that I have not talked with the municipal court judge because he is a council appointee, and so we don't really interface with him. But one of the recommendations that we have talked about is, wouldn't it be neat if we could establish a second court of record that would be a court that only dealt with these neighborhood enforcement issues? That way, we believe we could actually have time to present our cases, to discuss with the judge, to bring people in there, so there aren't 30 speeding tickets waiting to be heard, and they get the time and attention that they need. And I think working with the community on a one-on-one basis through the court system makes a lot of sense too, if we're trying to get compliance, which is really the overarching goal. We'd like compliance as soon as possible. Just have to get that. So anyway, that's our program. The report has a series of recommendations in it. Most of it I have touched upon. It does involve several of the departments in the city. I think one of the things the folks will be doing is reaching out to the health department and seeing if they can help. Is the district attorney, if something rises to that level, is the district attorney going to work with us? How will we enforce this? What are the impacts? How do we report this to the community? What kind of report do we give to the city council? All of those things, I think, will become clearer as we begin to implement the program. We need that first example under our belts in order to figure out what is working, what we need to work on, what we need to change, and where we need to go from there. But I do want to say that I think it is a promise from this group, because they're very committed to making sure that the community improves its appearance, addresses some of the other reciprocal types of activities that result from that, and basically provide a more livable neighborhood for our residents, no matter what neighborhood it is. So with that, we are here to answer any questions if you have them.
What about someone who the city's, like Danny, you may remember a house on Sunnyvale. Anyway, so they're way into the process, I'm sure. Can we already just jump into, just start writing a ticket every day kind of thing to get their attention?
Danny, you want to take that?
What is the complaint? As far as
It is junk in the front yard. They cleared up.
They had 3 pit bulls chained in the front yard this
And
weekend.
then we have animal issues too.
yeah,
So,
I
kind
know-
of broadly speaking, but I'm sorry. Back at the podium. Over the next 4 hours, I'll answer that question. So those are the ones where this program perfectly represents that.
We don't have to start over is really my question.
No, and that is where Ms. Vossmer and I actually had a good discussion yesterday. Is there are some offenders who have had their warnings, and so voluntary compliance is not occurring, and that's where using the teeth that are in the health and safety code come into play. And so there are violations at that residence that would qualify under those health and safety codes that Detective Heine shared with y'all. And so that's the good thing about this program is it has the friendly side of, there are some people who we would get compliance instead of issuing a $200 citation, they would use that $200 to mitigate whatever the complaint is. And so that's more of the friendly side. But then the immediate compliance side is kind of where Ms. Vossmer is we can use the health and safety code in that instance as well.
Under the letter under the abatement, it goes by poundage. Like, you got a lot of junk in the Greek, 5 pounds to 500 pounds is a class B. 500 pounds to 1,000 is a class A, and 1,000 pounds to over is a state jail felony. That's why I say the county attorney and district attorney is going to have to play a big part in that. Because if we dealt with him, we're not getting into a gun. Photograph, what's a bike weight, what's that weight? Anything over a bag of trash is a class B misdemeanor. So, you go to jail for a bag of trash in the front yard. If that's you wouldn't want to push the issue that hard. Now, some of those, like Sunnyvale, we may have to push that hard and make a case with the county attorney and go from there. Some of those, do we need to do that? They got some addresses, probably not. But people like that is where we need to really push the envelope over and say, we've been dealing with you for a year and we're not giving you attention. So maybe the county attorney or the district attorney can get their attention. And that's where it needs to be, being honest with you, because environmental crime is the least prosecuted thing in every city. But they don't think it means it. But it really does, because you throw the 2.9 level of our rating, it really does. And until we're going to clean up our town, and that's what it's going to take is some hard love on some people, because it's what it's going to take. Just being honest. There's a lot of it out there, unfortunately.
Is there any, I would just offer that I know you haven't had a chance to read the report and the recommendations. Anyone here would be happy to answer any questions that you have or meet with you. And one of the things we want to do, though, is have you help us begin to identify those neighborhoods, 2 or 3 blocks at a time, that you'd like us to start with when we start implementing the program. And if you could share that information with us, it would help us get started.
Melissa, what's our time frame for implementation of the program?
Well, we were looking at our first neighborhood effort, probably about the 3rd week of May, to get all the final pieces in place to address the issue or continue the discussion on the court issue and how we're going to handle the additional work, to let the new director of planning and operations get in, because this is going to be her program. And I think realistically, get all of our social media stuff ready, and I think by the 2nd to 3rd week of May, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff, can we handle it under our current, or do we need a second judge?
It would be beneficial to have a second judge. The municipal docket is pretty stacked right now for Judge Maxwell. I haven't talked to him specifically about it, but if you're adding a large caseload onto there, it would be helpful to have an associate municipal judge.
I think that also by saying that the council supported and developed a special court to deal with these issues, one, folks who want to make improvements, who need help and time, know they have a place they can go, and 2, the folks that we really want to get their attention know there's a court that is going to be looking at them and will develop a history with them that is more focused than what we've been able to do in the past.
Any other questions?
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Motion to adjourn.
Make a motion with
Second.
All in favor?
All right.